Hi, and welcome to the Triggered Newscast. Today's April 14th, 2019, and tonight we have a very special program. It's our first Google's live hangout session. I brought in Let's Be Frank, who has a pretty big following himself. So, Frank, let's go ahead and welcome you on. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your channel, a little bit about you, and let my viewers know who you are and what you do.
Hi, yes, glad to be here. As Triggered Newscast there just introduced me. My name's Frank. I am from Let's Be Frank, the channel there, and I cover a array of topics and it's mostly just me commentating on political events, current events, anything that's actually happening in the news right then and there. And my turnaround on most of my videos are pretty quick because I don't have to do a whole lot of editing. It's most of the stuff's off the cuff that I do, unless it's a deeper video that I go into and actually have to do research. But I've been doing this for just a little over a year now, and I enjoy it doing so much. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't be doing it because as Trigger's Newscast will tell you, this actually becomes a lot of hard work actually pouring into this stuff. And so I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
I'm glad to be here tonight. I'm glad to have the opportunity to visit with Trigger Newscast as we continue to attempt to do more of these types of live streams across different channels.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty wonderful. We've only done a few, I've only done a few live casts myself, and I know that you've only done a couple of these Google Hangouts. So we're still trying to get it down. We were on about 10 minutes before the live cast, and I already managed to ruin the auto switch between us. So, uh, again, this is the first time I've done it as the host. Hopefully, next time it'll be a little bit more seamless for everyone watching. But we wanted to start off tonight's episode. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump, about the statements he's made about sending all of the migrants hitting the border on over to the sanctuary cities. And then we have great Democratic politicians who have flip-flop every 3 years on the issue, just in time for the election season. And we wanted to start off the show with a quick clip about that. And then I'm going to get Let's Be Frank's reaction. And hopefully we can find the live chat. It's a little bit hard to see it behind all of these Google Hangouts and stuff. So I'm going to try and get in there. I'm going to try and be able to answer questions live on the air tonight. Might be a little bit difficult for us, but we're going to go ahead and screen share that video. And then we're going to get Frank's reaction. And let us know down in the comments what you think as well.
And they want more people in their sanctuary cities, well, we'll give them more people. We can give them a lot. We can give them an unlimited supply. I think we can enforce our borders. I think we should enforce our borders. To have a situation where 40% of the babies born on Medicaid in California today are born of illegal immigrants creates a very real problem for the state. We have been reporting on the decline of San Francisco, the most liberal agency. As you may know, the city front today is a sanctuary place defying federal immigration law. It is also a town where permissive social policies rule. So, the sharp uptick in crime and a homeless situation that is now out of control. So law and our public works crews are doing how easy. They pick up blood center drugs to riches. This box, they got over 100 plus a minute. How we don't see these, they do it. I go in there, and this is just one homeless camp out of dozens around San Francisco. We've always had chronic homelessness, but never to this extent. And it's really, the bottom line is with the liberal progressive policies, the illegal immigrants who come here and commit felonies, that's not what this nation is about. You have to concentrate on saying, people who should be here are those who come legally. And we've got to, for the time being, enforce our borders. In a day when America could be the welfare system for Mexico is gone. We simply can't afford it. And I think you've seen the figures, the state and local governments, of what the cost is. It's over $2 billion. A lot of people coming in, refugees coming in, a lot of sanctuary cities, so we'll give them to the sanctuary cities maybe to take care of it. That's the way they want it, because we can only hold them under the current law for 20 days. So we apprehend them by the thousands.
All right, Frank, let's go ahead and get your reaction. I went ahead and cut that short because there we get into about 6 minutes of Trump going on the whole speech. It's all there if you guys want to watch it. There's also a link to the whole extended clip. But I wanted to get your reaction not only on the new editing that I did, but on specifically the remarks of Dianne Feinstein and the flipping of the Democratic Party on the issue of the wall.
Well, okay. Well, first of all, let me just say one thing before I go into the comments about what I think about all that. The live chat isn't showing up on the stream right now. Somebody had mentioned it in the comments of the video, so I'm not sure if we have the live stream or the live chat turned off or something. I don't know if it's something on your end that you can look at. And while you look at it, I can go ahead and answer those questions.
Yeah, give that a shot.
Okay. I believe that the president's doing exactly what he is doing now that he's kind of has the Mueller thing behind him and those types of investigations for the special counsel behind him. I think this has absolutely allowed him to go more so on the offensive now and to start pushing hard back on the Democrat Party and really allowing them to reveal their feelings about immigration itself, where they're now having to speak out both sides of their mouth. And he said for over the last couple of years that Democrats really do not care about these dreamers or these immigration people or people that are coming over across because they are unwilling to make a deal with him. Even when he put DACA back on the table a few months back, and he put a couple other things that the Democrats claimed they wanted, but when it was actually put out there for them, they rebuked them on it. And so this is just another classic example of how Trump is now almost trolling them. I don't think he was serious in the manner that he was going to go do it right then and there, but by floating that idea out on Twitter, absolutely created the conversation. And now we have these Democrats on record saying how dangerous it could be to have all these illegals in their sanctuary cities. That Cory Booker had an interview, I think it was earlier today, talking about how dangerous that situation can be.
Absolutely, and I totally agree. And I think that what's really funny about the whole issue with the Democrats and their sanctuary cities is they can't even clean up the poop off the streets. They literally have applications just like an Uber or just like a Lyft so that you can avoid heavily poop populated areas of the city. And Sacramento, the city I live in, homelessness is a huge problem. It's much more prevalent than people think. And sadly, uh, in the downtown area, a lot of those people have psychological issues. It's very clear, but because of deinstitutionalization, they're not getting the type of support and help that they need. And since they're not a danger to others or themselves, they're basically living in a very sad state of being. And people walk right by them every day, ignore them. And some of these people, I've seen this guy who lives right across the street from my work, and he has been there for 30 years, according to all my coworkers. According to all the locals, the guy basically has never moved. And he used to be a normal, typical guy, got schizophrenia. He was an MIT professor at one point, a mathematician, went schizophrenic, had a house and everything in LA, and has lived on the street, even though he still owns a house in Sacramento for no reason. And it's really sad that not only can they not get the homeless population, the poop off the streets, but they're under this ridiculous idea that somehow our whole country can sustain all of these illegal influx. It's not that it's proper migration, and that's people try and hammer Trump all the time on immigration. He's actually all for immigration. He's all for jobs. He's all for skilled workers. He's not for illegal immigration. There's coming into the country legally. There's refugee status. There's student visas. All of these are different issues, have different ways they're handled, different application processes. The asylum is completely different. The unaccompanied minors, the MS-13, the gang members coming through, drug smuggling. I think it's hilarious. They basically quit parroting the entire narrative because it's obvious that 90% of the drugs do not only come through the port of entry. it's probable and likely that that statistic is actually referring to 90% of the drugs that are confiscated at the port of entry, because
And
obviously it's a place that's actually guarded.
And you bring up an excellent point there, and that's a great talking point for many people that are in support of no border wall, because we're catching the majority of drugs to the ports of entry. However, if you look, we have no statistics that show what's actually coming in through the poorest parts of the border into the states such as Texas, New Mexico, or Arizona, that are not being accounted for at the ports of entry. So for them to be able to articulate an argument saying that we are catching the majority of it at the ports of entry is a very dishonest. It's almost a fallacy as they present to us to try to argue that point. And I refuse to argue that point with them, and they get mad at me because I don't want to play their game. Another real quick thing with the Democrats and their outrage all of a sudden. Now they're calling it an emergency now because Trump has threatened to drop them off in their districts. It wasn't an emergency when they were being dropped off in Texas or Arizona. That was okay because their plan, their long-term plan, I feel, in my opinion, is that they're working to turn those red states into purple states and eventually blue states.
Absolutely, that's exactly what they're trying to do. And what's sad about the Democrats and their whole narrative on the wall has flip-flopped every time. Bush wanted a wall, Hillary Clinton wanted a wall, Bill Clinton wanted a wall, Obama campaigned on a wall. He also campaigned on hope and change and a lot of other promises. And I think that's why we're seeing not only this huge walkaway movement, is a lot of Democrats really wanted DACA handled. They really wanted the Dreamers handled. They also want border security. They don't like human trafficking, child sex trafficking, the child pornography, the influx of heroin and fentanyl. And you can argue about if it comes by ship, by plane, by whatever. Everyone wants increased security, not just on the southern border. I think that's the narrative that the mainstream media tried to paint early on, because that is a trouble and problematic area of our border. Obviously, the Mexican cartels are much more in charge of that southern border than Mexico themselves is, and in many ways more than our border security guards. You can look at the Obama's Hope and Change regime, the Fast and Furious incident, all of the guns that were being smuggled over. You can look back to the Bush and Clinton eras, all the drugs that were openly being smuggled across, all the way down to Central America and beyond. So I think everyone knows in the White House and on the Hill, they all know that our border is porous down there, and they leave it that way on purpose. I don't know if it's because a lot of them have hands in these things. I find it more likely that companies and lobbyists on behalf of other rich people, the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world, these really terrible people who are right now going through big trials, these are the type of people that are going to be seeing justice. And I think that the Democrats have been seeing the same argument get spun around, that they truly believe in these things. They want the security. They don't want those things to happen. They were voting for Hillary Clinton against Obama because she wanted a wall. Obama was completely in favor of the wall too, just like Hillary Clinton, and he proposed $6 billion for a wall. That was one of the first videos I actually made on the channel, was all of the Democratic pundits as they were campaigning or after campaigning, promising their walls, their border security budgets, and all of them actually wanted more than Donald Trump did. And it was, to me, when I was still a Democrat before the Trump regime. I was for Obama because I wanted hope and change and I was against Hillary Clinton. The same way that it came around in 2018, Hillary Clinton versus Trump, I was with Trump, even though at the time there was no basis for my support. He was actually saying many things, the grab him by the Pelosi, and these other things that he said. So those things, those weren't exactly things that I was championing or wanted people to associate with me and support to a pundit. But I think what everyone really forgets about politics, all of it aside, and I'll explain in a moment why this doesn't actually apply to Hillary Clinton, but you should not necessarily hold every politician's personal life against them. I actually agree with that on both sides of the aisle. While I'm conservative leaning, I'm very, very middle round, and I believe that everybody deserves freedom. Everybody gets freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and I really dislike that the Democrats are shutting it down. And that was definitely one thing pushing me to the right. But what was really, really apparent in this whole election is that on Trump, despite all of the negative ad campaigns, they had really nothing on him besides a few comments that he'd made. They had nothing besides circumstantial women who would claim that he had touched them, some fake Me Tooers. And sorry, on the point of the chat, I forgot to say somehow I must have disabled it for this video. This is the first Google Hangouts, so that's why I can't even find the link to the live chat. I apologize to all the viewers tonight. Give us a break. This is both of our first and second times doing this, but we'll get it dialed in so that you guys have the super chat going. You guys can share links and do all that good stuff live with us next time. But back on track, back on point. Besides Donald Trump, any political candidate, if it's regarding their personal life, maybe if it's something of moral turpitude, maybe the Anthony Weiner sending out pictures of his wiener to little kids, those kinds of things, those kinds of elements of your private life, those really matter to me, the voter. But the other, I don't really care what your religion is. Now, I say that with a caveat, because if we had an Ilhan Omar president, trying to push Sharia law, I'm not sure that anyone in America would be better off. I wouldn't say if it was a Muslim as president who wasn't fundamentalist and radical and basically like anyone else who goes to church just has their belief. If they weren't pushing it through their agenda, through their policy, that'd be fine. I think that's what most people on the left want about any Christian president on the right. I think it's fair. But where this doesn't apply to candidates like Hillary Clinton is she has a long track record on public of being involved in spurious crimes. I mean, going back to the Congressional Post Office scandal, the Whitewater law firm investigation with Bill and Hillary Clinton, the Iran-Contra scandal, Bill Clinton's mishandling of FBI documents, treason, abuse of powers, giving military secrets to China and Russia. All of these were known alleged crimes, and the only reason any of them were being pursued for impeachment, although most people, including the Democrats, forget this, but especially the Republicans and the conservatives are the ones I think should be remembering these details, is these were dropped because of the Paula Jones trial, because of all of the stuff going on with Bill Clinton, because these women were coming forth and testifying. He was also under a judicial review by the Congress. They were doing an investigative committee looking at his abuse of power, his treason, his mishandling of FBI documents. Funny, it would circle around years later and it would be his wife, which I'm surprised they're not exes, because as everyone only remembers from that incident is the Monica Lewinsky issue. And Monica Lewinsky it's the funniest thing. She only came to play to give Bill Clinton a scapegoat. Because what's the first thing that any prosecutor does? As soon as they have enough evidence to charge a crime and the other ones are going to take too long, they drop the other crimes and they smack you with the one that's obvious. Well, he came on live TV. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And he said it time and time again to all of us in America in a tone that no one believed the whole time. And then he comes around and perjures himself on live TV in multiple interviews outside of court without prosecutors forcing him to, and says, turns out I did have sexual relations with that woman. And so thus he perjured himself. When he perjured himself, that's what he was being charged for impeachment with, not for the other crimes he was actually being investigated by. And the only reason that Monica Lewinsky came was to be a character witness against Bill Clinton. This is from the prosecution. She was a witness for the prosecution, and she was telling everyone, oh, he would cheat on his wife with someone like Paula Jones or some of these other people accusing him because he did it with me. And this isn't a long time ago. I mean, a few weeks ago in the Oval Office. And so a lot of people have forgot all of the scandals with the Clintons going all the way back prior to to his presidency. When he was still the governor of Arkansas, when all of the Iran-Contra, the cocaine smuggling stuff was going on in the airports, every single other person in the Arkansas offices, the deputy governor who became governor when Bill Clinton was elected, all of them went to prison, and those were all of the people that he pardoned when he was exiting his presidency. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton are the two most corrupt individuals in American political history, hands down, and that's without going into any of the conspiracies, any of the suspicious deaths, any of the missing interns or the people who fell on 2 bullets on the back of their head. All of those conspiratorial things aside, there you can go to Wikipedia and there is basically 67 links on her page pointing to scandals and controversies that are all on the historical, legal, congressional record. All of them.
And
Yeah.
that's why they're still married, because
Oh,
they
yeah.
can't under law they don't have to testify against each other. So
That's probably the only reason.
And so it's probably just a mutual contract at this point that say, hey, I won't spill the beans on you if you don't spill the beans on me, and we'll just live this sham of a life moving forward. Just to go back to your point before we jumped on to Clinton, I just wanted to add a little bit to the border situation real quick. We had Pinoy News on last night on my channel along with Atomic News, and the one of the biggest points I think Pinoy pointed out was the war on drugs has helped fuel some of that we currently see at the border now, along with the corrupt politicians in our government that refuses to address the issue because they're able to wield this as a political weapon on both sides. So you have Republicans and Democrats that don't want this problem solved. In this sense, government is not working for the people. They're working for themselves to continue to hold on to power by using scare tactics on both sides to influence voters to vote for them and give them power to continue to trample on more of our individual freedoms that we currently have. And I just kind of wanted to make that point.
I think you're right on it. And I think that it really does come down to what you just said about the votes. Is why has that always been their marching drum? Well, because they're always funded by individuals like George Soros or other globalists or monetary funds or their direct candidates like the Clintons or others. It doesn't have to even be the witch Hillary. These candidates are often in the Council of Foreign Relations, the bilateral commissions, the Bilderbergs. These are the people going to the UN summits on sustainability and talking about how they can keep air conditioners out of Africa and sterilize Americans. And I know a lot of that sounds crazy, and without getting into any conspiracies, you can look back into the great state of California, where just a few years ago, the prisons were caught sterilizing the women, openly giving them surgeries under false pretenses, putting them under anesthesia and giving them surgery to tie their tubes or to give them a complete permanent solution, removing full portions of the uterus or ovaries. So a lot of this stuff is pretty crazy, but these are the same Democrat globalists that are pushing this, and their own party's falling apart. It's an obvious bid by a dying party to try and maintain any control when the only thing they can do is try and cater to and I'm not trying to be racist in saying this, they cater to a Latino base. And I see that a lot here in Sacramento. They have billboards all over the city, La Vota, Raza, and all this stuff, La Raza, all this stuff about the race needs to rise up and vote.
And you bring up La Raza there for a second, and that group itself is a racist group in itself. And I know it for, me being a Latino heritage, Mexican heritage. I grew up in a small Mexican farming town here in the state of Florida. And, La Raza, it was almost like I'm not going to go as far as say it's a gang, but it was pretty much a gang in suits. They were able to wield their influences into the Latino community to make the white man seem like they're the big boogeyman every chance they get. And for that, it's no different than Chair, like the Muslim group that advocates for Muslim Americans' supposed rights that they say are being taken away. And last night we kind of touched on or that was my whole subject to start with, was the Ilhan Omar. But Pinoid News, he said he agreed with the second part of her, the context of her statement that she had made, talking about by using the 9/11 tragedy to steal more of our individual rights away. But that wasn't just Muslims they were doing it to. They were doing it to Americans across the board. That's how we ended up with a TSA, Homeland Security, and all these other departments that continue to infringe more and more on our daily lives.
Absolutely. And the sad thing is most of that is Democratic run policies. They want this overall control. And because their whole party's disappearing, because the walk away movement is so strong, because their party's devoid of policy and logic, and their spokespeople, like Nancy Pelosi, who's such a genius, they're getting outranked by freshman Democrats that can't even not say something anti Semitic for a week or not tweet something anti Semitic. Or they can't make themselves not the presence of a meme every single day, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. These new spokeswomen for the Democratic Party. Let's just say if I was still a Democrat at this point and still was aiming for a Democratic candidate, an Obama or one of that, a Biden. So, if there was the Biden that I was into, then maybe perhaps, I would ignore all of that silliness and just focus on my candidate. But they don't even have a good candidate. Every
Now,
single aspect of the Democratic Party has basically died. And whatever's left is really this radical, really, really radical foreign global socialist propaganda network. All of the media, MSNBC, even Fox now, we got Donna Brazil, the last few bastions of conservative, pundits on Fox News no longer really even have a conservative bent. I posted a video the other day about how they were completely defending Joe Biden and saying, "Oh, well, never mind." And this isn't their words, this is mine now. I'm just summarizing what they did with some satire. Never mind that he's our political enemy, and it would be really easy to undercut him right now, kick his feet out from under him, which he's already done himself. But let's actually go on the defensive for him and explain how what he did was probably just normal behavior. And let's try and save the one hope that the Democratic Party basically has at this moment, which is creepy Uncle Joe. And let's not undercut him, and let's allow any competition for Donald Trump. I would
well,
rather. Sorry about
Nancy Pelosi, that's okay. Nancy Pelosi had an interview with 60 Minutes here recently, and they had asked her about her caucus and if she is starting to lose control. I made a video about this earlier this week about Nancy Pelosi losing the grip on her Democratic Party and the fractures that are starting to become more and more visible. And she tried to downplay it, was saying it's only five progressive House members, and then she tried to say she was also a progressive.
Oh, yeah.
She might be a progressive, but these women are socialists. They are further down the street than Pelosi is.
Oh, yeah. And that's what they're being able to get away with. I've been saying since I started the channel a month and a half ago. And again, thanks for everyone who stopped in tonight. Anyone who's right here, I think my screen's a little bit behind, but I got 7 or 8 in at the moment. I messed up. This is our first Google Hangout, so the live chat's turned off, but we'll get the next one going for you. And I got Let's Be Frank here. I know many of my viewers are not necessarily familiar with your channel, but he's already done quite a good introduction. You've obviously got a good chance to hear him. He's got wonderful points, and hopefully you guys will stick around. We're going to keep just this conversation going until maybe we feel like it fizzles out. So I just want to ask you another question, Frank.
Okay.
What do you think about that? I mean, obviously there's a trend, not only as we were just saying with the Democratic Party dying, with them being able to go way further left because their mainstream spokeswomen like Nancy Pelosi have made such a mockery of the party that now we have these far, far left socialist non-Americans who are just reading literally George Soros fund papers through what Sidehawk Chakrabarra and Zach Exley, who are going all the way through. They're basically the puppet masters for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And this is well known. Mr. Reagan made a great video about it. It's got 2 or
Absolutely.
3 million views on it now. I did a follow-up to it and connected it to George Soros. His very next video, I think it was his third installment on it, brings up the George Soros connection. It's not flimsy. It's very, very obvious. It's through the Open Society Foundation. This whole wing of Justice Democrats are obviously a globalist front, and I totally agree with you there. But my question is since this is obviously going on, since there's obviously an inner takeover of the Democratic Party, they're trying to rebrand it. It's not working for Democrats. We're losing Democrats left and right. Do you think that's why that they're trying to get the 16 vote? That's why they want the dead man's vote? That's why they want all of the 130% voter turnout, the illegal votes, these asylum votes? Pretty soon they're going to just allow people with international student visas to vote, or anyone who's related to someone in America should vote Democrat. Why not? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. This is with they know their votes are being siphoned off all over the place right now. You know, through different movements such as the Walk Away that you've mentioned, and also Blexit, which is Candace Owens' movement that she has started on her own to help move the Black Americans off of the Democratic plantation. Yeah, they're losing. They're running out of places to look to gain votes, and that is why. Pandering to the 16-year-olds and the teenagers that are in high school, such as people that they have they're aligned with them, such as people like David Hogg and even I can't remember her name. She was also with him. I can't think of her name at the moment. It escapes me. But yeah, but with their influence on their end, you know, he's out there pounding the same thing. You know, 16. You know, and these guys, we make fun of it. Yes, it's easy to parody. You know, they don't even know what gender they are at 16 years old anymore, let alone who they want to vote for. But you know, they're running out of people to be easily deceived, and where they start losing control, I believe, is the rise in social media. The social media was the counter to all of the mainstream media, and now we have such a large, wide variety of alternative media sources. It's the narrative is no longer controlled. Yeah, they have a big microphone still, but it's not as big as it used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And with the Candace Owens, I've made several videos about her recently. I'm sure some of my new subscribers came in only because of that content. And I mean, she's wonderful. But besides pointing out with the Blexit and some of those things she has going on, besides pulling out and showing how racist the Democratic Party is, how white liberals think that what they're doing is trying to cause some kind of reparations for the racist past. But really, a lot of the things they say are racist. I bring it up in a lot of videos, calling someone African American rather than American. How do you know they were born in Africa? I would posit
Right.
that only a small percentage of Black Americans are African Americans. And we can't confuse nationality, race, ethnicity. These are things I talk about as a psychological researcher that really irk me as a conservative in a liberal institution. That to basically get a study passed through the ethics review board, I have to show them on the informed consent, on the different indexes, the demographics, that I'm not going to try and trigger anybody by saying something that might disclude their gender or their sexual preference, or some liberal drink that they might have at night. So it's really frustrating from a pure academic side that I have to pull out this microaggression pseudoscience sociology BS, and it really muddles down the research. There's a lot of true topics that are very important and very interesting that I do research on: conformity, social pressure, false memory, injecting false memory. A lot of these memory manipulation things are very interesting. I've talked about in some of the videos the way memory happens, the way it's consolidated in your medial temporal lobe, the way that it gets encoded in there and for your working memory, and how that process changes over to be consolidated at night. And these things that happen with memory are really interesting. But when I have to analyze my data with 12 genders instead of 2, obvious disparities that I might see between genders don't appear in that kind of analysis. I have to get a
Oh,
much higher pool.
I'm about to say you're absolutely right about what you just said there, and also how white liberals are continuing to, in my opinion, are the most racist ones out there. They continue, to hammer on their points that they've been making over the last few weeks, white nationalism and Nazis and stuff like that. They're the ones that are actually segregating amongst everybody. Why do we have to identify with every single little thing? Why can't we just be an American versus a Black American or Hispanic American or a gay American or a transgender American? They're the ones that love to have these little boxes because that's how you're able to play the class warfare, the race warfare, and the political warfare by continuing to keep people divided up. And it's easy for them to continue to feed this nonsense to these people because in these universities, they allow the coddling to happen where the triggering, as they like using that word, their triggering is allowed to happen instead of where the professors in these institutions just stand firm and absolutely tell them the truth of what's going on and not allow the coddling to happen. Because this is where we're running into the issues now. This is why we see the freakouts that we see on social media or even in public.
Oh, yeah. And what's really, really sad about it is, for those of you who've stopped in, I haven't really actually talked much about my history, my past, or what I do professionally in many videos since I first started the channel. I do a lot of professional research. I'm in my last few weeks of my bachelor's. I'm getting a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in mathematical statistics, all in higher multivariate regression, programming, as well as using programs like SPSS. And some of the research that I conduct is very frustrating. I think I just lost the camera. I think the camera died. But
oh, yeah.
I'm just going to throw it up on you for now while I finish
okay.
out that point. But what's really frustrating about it is in almost every single class that we're in, it doesn't matter if it's sociology or the history of psychology, learning theory, neurobiology. I guarantee you at least 1/8 of that class will be devoted to completely PC subjects. Really pseudoscience stuff. And I'm not saying pseudoscience stuff like Klinefelter's syndrome isn't a real thing or that some people aren't intersexed, but we're talking about as an extreme minority of the population and we're forcing the majority to learn about it. And I'm not just saying in one class, I don't just go take a gender studies class on campus to learn about this. It's not just brought up in week 3 of biology when they're talking about XY, XYY, XXY. It's not just brought up in those. It's not just brought up in a policy or debate class. It's in everything. And so these people are so brainwashed by this liberal ideology. And I'm not saying, people have moral or religious objections to homosexuality. People fall all over on that spectrum. Me personally, I'm more on the libertarian side. Do whatever you want, but I don't think that the schools, just like schools can't push religion, shouldn't be pushing politics. They definitely shouldn't be pushing sexual perspectives. And
no, you're absolutely
not in the kids' schools.
No, you're absolutely right on that as far as that goes. And I kind of trend to be a little bit social conservative, but also I can see I'm able to accept other people. I don't have to agree with their lifestyle. As long as you're not trying to take any rights of mine away, I'm not going to be bothered by you. If whatever you do at home or whatever lifestyle you want to live, hey, that's on you. As long as you aren't trying to take that and say, hey, you can't go to this church anymore because they have a doctrine of talking strictly what comes out of the Bible, and that goes against what our lifestyle is. So we need to have you guys investigated. We need to boycott you and stuff like that. That's the reverse type of tyranny that they are saying they're experiencing when it's truly not there. And you're right about the schools pushing the political spectrum. I'm okay with political speak, but you need to, if you're going to have it, you need to have it from both sides. You can't just have it only one side's okay. You know, you have people that are being shut down by coming in with a pro Trump supporter hat or a shirt, but if the rules were reversed, if a student came in with Barack Obama Hope and Change T-shirt or a ball cap or something like that, nothing would be said. So there is absolutely double standards everywhere we look, and that we currently have. And it's interesting that we talk about the school thing real quick, is because I was trolling over on David Hogg's page earlier today because I made a video about David Hogg, so I had to go over there. I was looking at some of his tweets and things like that, and it was a student. He linked the story to a student that was kicked out or was told to remove their shirt or their MAGA hat or whatever. And he said, "Oh, look at these people, but we don't talk about all the misfortunes Muslims have to go through in school, and they're being told to take off their headdress, their hijab." I don't recall very many stories in the national media about that. That would be something that I think would catch national media attention pretty quick if it were to occur. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think just a few fake ones. We all know that there's been several of the faked ones. We've had the black people who torch their cars. Jesse Smollett just recently. Sorry about that. I had to pop a new battery in the camera.
Oh, great, you're back.
With the Jesse Smollett incident, it was very obvious that that was self-staged. We have the Nigerian brothers who came out and said, "Oh yeah, look, here's the check he gave us." And I think it's hilarious some of the stuff that Candace Owens says on the Jesse Smollett instance. But obviously Trump, like you said earlier at the beginning of this live cast, was being sarcastic probably, but trying to highlight the point that these Democrats would consider it an issue, and they have come out and said, yes, it would be considered an emergency if we had that high of an influx in our state. No, we can't handle that. No, don't send them here. So I think it's funny. We obviously have, from my great state of California, which is losing all conservatives like mad. And another funny statistic that they like to parrot, which is really well known, especially if you can go into World Bank databases, and this isn't necessarily only hold true for America. Conservatives on average have a higher education than liberals. I'll say that again, because they like to parrot the opposite. They have every institution, almost every professor in social science that I'm in psychology, they make up 96% of them. They openly say in their own studies that 98% of them come in unanimity and say, we would not fund or give credit or try and promote or write grants or approve research done by conservative cohorts. Literally, that they won't press them for tenure, that they don't want the conservatives there. Well, if we want affirmative action, if we want equal outcomes and equal opportunity, if we want schools to be truly diverse, then I think, like Candace Owens says, we need to have equal representation. And I don't mean some statistic like 12%, Latino, 17%, African American, 39% Caucasian. That's not the diversity I'm talking about. I'm talking about any news network that if they're going to be given and granted rights under the First Amendment for the freedom of the press, protected speech, if they're also going to be given extra benefits on top of average Americans in leniency for things like slander, defamation, false reports, false reporting deaths, reporting information that's classified, concealed, or sensitive nationally. If I was to do it, not if I was Hillary Clinton, but if I was to do it to give out any sensitive information like that, I would be arrested. If Fox News or The Blaze or CNN or MSNBC accidentally leak a very sensitive classified James Comey, statement that was not supposed to be to the public to one of his friends, and the journalist publishes it, that's not considered a leak. But if you're Brad Manning and you give information that highlights crimes by our government as a whistleblower, protected as a whistleblower, give information to a journalist who publishes that journalistic information, Yeah, if you can just see the hypocrisy between that small story, I think you're starting to understand the Democrats. I think you're going to join people like me and Frank here who've walked away from the Democrats, and we're going to keep on championing the fight to make more people walk away. Me, obviously, I'm here to trigger. If you're a Bernie person, then I don't know why you're even here, because Bernie people are the weirdest. Like, you guys have know nothing about politics, you know nothing about history, you know nothing about science. The top 1% of milk makes me sick to my stomach. You know, Bernie Sanders is part of the 1%. He's actually so rich, he's part of the top 1% of the 1%. I know that's ridiculous, but if you look it up, if you're in the millions, you're already in the top 1% of the 1% of America. And I'm actually for that as a capitalist. I'm glad he wrote a book. I'm glad he suckered all of his Bernie supporters, all of the burnouts into paying for his book. And that I'm cool with that. I'm glad that he's part of the 1% now. But he needs to change his whole campaign slogan, because how could he have people elect someone in the 1% if his whole campaign is against the 1%? So he's our first self-deprecating. It's hilarious going into the Bernie meme stashes. They think that they're like, you'll literally post something that's so anti-socialism and so anti-Bernie, and if you put like, you erase like conservative and put like socialism, they'll go, "Oh God, like it, share, 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 share." And if you read it, it's self-deprecating. It's making fun of everything they think they believe in. So if you're a Bernie person and you've stopped in, I hope everything I say triggers you. I hope that you pick a candidate who has a spine, and hopefully in 2024 you'll pick a smart candidate, and maybe we can have a discussion. Maybe you'll have learned a little bit about politics by then, and you can join in on the conservative Democrat debate.
Just to make a quick, just a minute correction there on. I've actually never have been a Democrat, so I never had an opportunity to walk away from the Democratic Party. I
Excellent.
started off when I was when I was in high school when I registered to vote.
That's an
My
important distinction. Yeah.
my senior year, I actually allied myself with the Republican Party, and that was only because I was in student government, and the leaders in that student government class of mine were actually all Republicans, and we all talked, and I shared a lot of the similar values they shared. And so when it came turn to kind of do party affiliation, I went ahead and filled in that bubble of being a Republican, and went against my entire family, which were all Democrat growing up. But it's funny because they're not your Democrat of today. They would be considered conservatives. And I had a discussion on this on my channel last week, talking about my mom and how she hates Trump and she hates Republicans. But when I was driving her home one day, I started bringing up issues and trying to gauge where she was on the spectrum. And by the end of the conversation, I said, "Congratulations, Mom, you're a conservative Republican."
You know she loved that.
She did. She got mad at me. But we still love each other, so it's all good.
All right. Well, I want to say thanks again for coming on, Frank. Before I let
Absolutely.
everyone go, I just want to not only remind you to check out Frank's page, but check out the Triggered News website. Not only have we added some of the content that that is from all these different YouTube creators. Hopefully, you guys can see that. I'm still kind of
Yeah, it's on the screen. You can see it.
But we got the highlighted video section. All you got to do is go to triggerednewscast.com. And if you go up to the top right or the top on a computer, you're going to see the bar, hit the highlighted videos, and you're going to be able to check out all of the content by the different creators. We have at the top the collaboration section, and down here some of the other great contributors. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom on any part of the website, you'll see the user forums. We obviously have some different topics. And if you come back out to the main front, our goal here is to get each of these different YouTube creators their own small part of that forum, to get all of you, the viewers, the subscribers, engaging, giving us tips, giving us feedback, and maybe getting to see some different YouTube creators that YouTube isn't necessarily pushing to you, but that we think strongly you will also enjoy. And just like us, they're all small, independent channels, and they're just looking to grow themselves and spread that patriotic message. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for stopping in tonight. Thank you, Let's Be Frank, for coming in. If you want to give
My
any last
pleasure.
shout out.
Thank you for having me on, by the way, and I appreciate it. If you guys want to see more of my content, you guys can always visit me at Let's Be Frank on YouTube, and I have different social media links as well, Facebook and Twitter, which those links are always in my videos in the description, so you guys can always go follow me there. But besides that, we are working toward growing this community all the way around between Triggered Newscast, myself, and others that we speak with on a daily basis, is just trying to benefit all of you guys, the audience out there, trying to give you guys different perspectives and different takes on what the mainstream media is trying to put out there. So thank you again for having me on tonight.
Yeah, and one last thing about the website is like Let's Be Frank was just saying, if you go there, any of the different channels, you can click right on their logo, right on their name. You can subscribe to them right from the website, and you can view the content right from the website. So it's a good way to check out not only what these other channels have. If you just go to the triggerednewscast.com, I'll have that in the description afterwards. You're going to be able to get Let's Be Frank, the Clover Chronicles. We're going to have several other ones coming up. We got Rogue Research. This guy's brand new, just a couple videos. We got Let's Be Frank right here. Again, if you just click on any one of them, it's going to take you right to their page, and Profane News. So thank you all again. Thank you so much for stopping in. Thank you, Frank. It was really cool to have you on. This was obviously my first time trying to cast on the screens. We failed with the live chat. We're sorry, everyone. It would have been really cool to be able to interact with you. But we'll figure out what I did wrong there, and we'll see you again next time. I'm going to give my live cast schedule. Let's hear what your live cast schedule is real quick, Frank, and then after that, we'll just go ahead and say our good nights.
Okay, yeah, you can always catch me live on my live streams. They are done on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, all at 10 p.m. And occasionally I may sprinkle in a few additional ones depending on what's going on in the news. That typically what drives some of the not scheduled live streams. So those are always a quick surprise ones. They can appear at any time of the day. But my three main scheduled ones are those days: Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same with me. I got the 4 days I do it. Yours are Eastern Pacific Standard Time, right? Eastern Standard Time?
Yes, Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, and then me on the opposite coast, California, I do the live cast Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So again, that's still 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So please check out Let's Be Frank. Thank you for checking me and Let's Be Frank out tonight. And I can't wait to do more of these live hangout sessions, to bring on some of these other YouTube creators and not only introduce you guys to them. All of us are not here to push, coins or flashlights or survival kits and food down your throat. Everyone else.
No vitamins here.
We're literally
gotta take your vitamins so you keep the frogs gay.
Although maybe I'll let you guys go on. Obviously I touched into the Ruth Bader Ginsburg conspiracy. For those of you who haven't seen some of the videos, I compiled some of the evidences that were there because no one else did. I don't necessarily make videos about my beliefs about it or what's happened to her, if she's not there or is there. Mostly I just combined all of the proof that we have of her being there just for people to see, so you can make up your own mind afterwards. But I made kind of a good joking video to make fun of myself and to make fun of Alex Jones. For those of you who don't know me, I am Bill Hicks, the real Bill Hicks. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to take you out on what was originally the Mueller meltdown, but became my kind of my promo video. So I'm going to let you guys all watch that on the way out. Thanks again, Let's Be Frank, for coming in. It was definitely awesome to have you. Do you know what your topic is for your next live cast coming up?
Actually, no, I do not yet. I know it's tomorrow already, but I have not decided what it's going to be. especially with YouTube really cracking down on things like Ilhan Omar discussions that demonetizes most videos. Right now, it's a triggered keyword at the moment. So I'm not sure what we're going to live stream. I'm going to see what happens Monday morning, Monday afternoon, and I'll have a decision made by 5 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, that that happens with me a lot too. On the website, I did add the Google Calendar. The point of that is so that all of the other YouTube content creators can add their live cast schedules in, and that you guys, the viewers, can go in there, sync up with any events that you want. Hopefully, we'll get a little bit more coordinated as time goes on. But the website's literally a week old. We're just really getting up in the groove of doing these collaborations, and we can't wait to have you guys check it out. So again, thank you so much for coming on. Let's Be Frank. I'm going to go ahead and pop up that video as we roll out of here tonight.
Y'all have a good night. Thank you for joining me, or hosting me, I should say.
Absolutely. Thank you, Frank.
I was just like you. I was scouring the internet and television, just trying to find answers. Everyone kept promising that they had or delivered. I'm not asking for any money, and I'm not trying to sell you anything. This is the gift, and it won't cost you a penny. I'm not going to try and get you to do yoga or drink kale. It won't take 12 hours a week. It won't take any pharmaceutical. It's 100% natural. You already have everything you can get home right now. I know you just want to reclaim your manhood or womanhood. You're tired of feeling lethargic. You just want to be the best. You'd like to climb higher than being below that, up to mediocrity. This could literally change your life. You remove these few simple things from your life, you'll find testosterone, your hormones, your IQ, your social skills, and your ability to suppress emotions will all come in as what I'm going to share with you. A month ago, it changed my life so much. It inspired me to create a YouTube channel, create a website and a forum, bring like-minded individuals who just wanted to share information freely, not be deceived. And the change I've seen in them is why I'm talking to you today. Naturally, after the broadcast aired on one conspiracy, I decided to branch into the other. What do you have to do? It's simple. Just walk away from the Democratic Party. Subscribe. Punch the bell like it's Nancy Pelosi's head. Go to triggernewscast.com and join the board. And trigger people with logic, fact, and satire. If this video changed your life too, please hit the thumbs up, share it, trigger someone else. Click the warning.
All right. Again, thank you everyone for coming in. We'll see you at the next Triggered Newscast.